Hello, and welcome back to our Facebook Live with Lifestyle Medicine. We have not done one of these in a couple of weeks, and so I'm excited to do our next one today, and it's an awesome topic on the food industry. So, one of the biggest things that affects our life is the food we buy, where it comes from, and unfortunately, the food industry has so much influence over all of this. So today we're going to talk about kind of when these changes started. We're going to talk about some of the things that you may or may not know about the food industry. We're going to talk about everything from veggies to meats to chickens. We're going to talk about how it affects our body. We're going to talk about restaurants. We're going to talk about so many different things. And as always, please feel free to send us comments, questions, concerns that you may have, and I would love to hear them and go ahead and answer those for you. So let's start off. So back of what. And before I do that, again, my name, for those of you that may be watching for the first time, is Nishith Parikh. I'm a family practice physician that is now specializing in lifestyle medicine, and it has been a very awesome experience to work with some of you that may be watching this, and I look forward to working with more of you. So where does all of this, when did it start? So much of our food industry and the so much of the revolution in food started around and after World War II, when the industrialization of food started, when more people joined the workforce, and all of a sudden we started to see that the food industry started to turn its focus from taste to efficiency and size and profits. And when this started, farming practices started to change. The production of meat and how meat was produced, it started to change, and because of that, we see the effects of this so many years later. So one of the biggest things is let's start with veggies. When vegetables and meats, for that matter, when they are now produced at scale, we lose the nutrients because we lose the quality. And so the food we're eating is not really as strong, as powerful, as nutrient rich as it once used to be. So where did all this start from? So back in the day, when our government said, well, we need to start making some changes in people's lifestyle because we're noticing that people are getting bigger, people are becoming more sick. Let's make some changes to our food recommendations. Unfortunately, some of the people that for beef and dairy were left out, as when the science showed that we need to eat less meat, we need to eat less beef, we need to consume less dairy. Those recommendations were changed because of the people that sat on the council. It's all in books, it's in research, you can look it up. But these things changed, and because of that, the industry started to recommend these different changes that included meat and dairy to be very prevalent into people's diets. Remember the old food pyramid, which has now changed because of the new science, which is now being accepted, has changed the amount of meat and dairy consumption. Anyway, that started to change the food industry many, many years ago. And the research kept going on and showing that what can we do to addict people, to hook people to what we want to eat. And so marketing campaigns were started. So for example, Betty Crocker, she was started as a marketing campaign, which was, she's not a real person. It's a fake lady. But she started talking about food, and she started talking about health and nutrition and feeding your family, and she started talking about all these different things. And now Betty Crocker is a household name that sells us a bunch of garbage. But that's where all these things started. So food marketing, the food industry is not there to make you healthy. It is there to addict you to buy their product more and more and more. So here's a story. So the food industry realized that three things addict us to food. One is fat, one is sugar, and one is salt. And so almost every ingredient and every product that's made, that's processed by these companies, has these three ingredients in it. And it's gone not just from the grocery stores, but it's also gone into restaurants. So a big player in this is the Cheesecake Factory. When you read, and so their dilemma is, okay, well, we need to make food sound really healthy, but we need to make people keep coming back. So what do? So they have items like grilled soy chicken, honey glazed, or honey glazed soy chicken, or something. I can't remember the name of on the item, but they do that. So they have the chicken, which is a fat. They have soy sauce, which is salty, and they have honey, which is sweet. So they take these three ingredients and they say it's grilled, and now all of a sudden it sounds really healthy. But those three items addict you, so you want to go back and you keep eating at Cheesecake Factory. Now, when we look at all the hundreds of restaurants and thousands of restaurants out there, Cheesecake Factory is not that great, although we want to keep going back. It's a great place to go. They've dimmed the lights. It's a nice social place. They've created the perfect environment for you to want to keep going back and eating at that restaurant, and eating at that restaurant. And the food to you, even if it didn't taste the best, you feel very satisfied after eating it. They give you huge portions, and so we eat way more than we really want to. So you feel like you're also getting a really good deal for your money. This is not just by chance. Cheesecake Factory and many restaurants like this have spent hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on marketing, on psychologists, on food science to say, how do we get people to eat our food, make them think they're eating something healthy, and yet at the same time make them spend money and come back to our restaurants, even though the stuff that they're buying, the product that they're getting, is probably not the healthiest. Now, when you're eating things like chicken, 90% of the salt intake that we get is already pre-injected into chicken before you eat them. The chicken by itself is very bland because these chickens, most of them don't run around. They're not healthy for us. And the life of a chicken is about 35 days from the time a chicken is born to the time it is killed to eat. It only gets 35 days because they've figured out that's the maximum size of a chicken, not weight, maximum size. And you get it needs the least amount of feed to get at 35 days. After that point, you have to feed it more. It's going to gain more weight, and it's going to just take more time. So the industry doesn't care about that. It wants maximum yield with the least amount of cost to produce it. And so because of that, again, we're getting very unhealthy chickens for people that eat it. So because of that, again, the health of those chickens is very, very poor. And that health of that chicken is now being translated into us. So when you eat something like chicken nuggets, the flavor in that chicken nugget is not from the chicken. Chicken nuggets are ground up chicken, added with water, a bunch of flavoring, then it's battered into something. Again, tons and tons of history has figured out through science and through gas chromatography and all these of what is actually the things that make chicken taste like chicken. What is it that makes tacos taste like tacos? What is it that makes kale taste like kale? And they have learned how to make synthetic chemicals to make your food taste like whatever you want it to taste like. So that's why you have Doritos that taste like tacos. That's why you have guacamole flavored chips. That's why you have Grape Aid, which is supposedly grape juice, but there's no grape juice in it. It's just high fructose corn syrup, but it tastes like grapes. So your body thinks, oh, you're getting a lot of grapes in my diet, and it throws off what our body thinks is nutrition. And so because of that, all of a sudden, our body starts to get confused. Our bodies have a natural way to know what it needs. So when you have a craving, I'm craving chips, I'm craving something, you probably want something salty. And the way our body, when it knows it needs something, it goes looking for certain foods. Now, the industry has mixed up what our brains think is salty, what is sweet, what is a carb, what is a protein. It has mixed all that up because flavor additives and fortified foods have become so common in our diet. So when you're eating wheat flour or you're eating rice, it's fortified with iron. It doesn't really have it in there, but it's fortified with iron. Cereals are fortified with iron, riboflavin, vitamin D. I mean, you name it. The list is so long of all the vitamins and minerals that it's fortified with. But because of that, our body thinks, oh, if I'm craving, I don't know, iron, let me go eat Cheerios because I can get iron from Cheerios. And so all of a sudden, you start craving foods that are high in carbs, high in sodium, high in sugar, and that craving goes away, but we don't really increase our nutrition, and we end up getting bigger. We end up having a harder time losing weight. We end up with diabetes, with high blood pressure, with cholesterol, with all these diseases that keep happening to us, even though our science has improved, our food industry has improved, our disease amounts have not improved. They've actually gotten worse. So even though we should, with technology, with science, with research, we should be able to have better food, we're actually getting worse food. Same thing, when we go back in history and we look at the dairy industry, at one point before Ronald Reagan became president, but I can't remember the exact year, 19, whatever it was, the government said, we will subsidize the dairy industry. And at that same time, recommendations to get rid of saturated fat came out. So the dairy industry started to find out that people want low-fat milk. So they started going from whole milk to 2%. So now they had all this leftover fat. What did they do with that? They started making cheese. There's so much cheese on the market that the government was subsidizing it and buying up all the cheese because they had a law that the government would fulfill by all extra dairy that was on the market. So at one point, I think the government had a stockpile of 1 billion pounds of cheese. And so it started figuring out, okay, what are we going to do with this? So they came out with marketing campaigns to get people to buy cheese. Eventually, Ronald Reagan became president and said, wait a minute, we're not going to keep doing this. Let's teach the dairy industry, let's teach the dairy farmers, let's teach these people how to market and sell cheese. So after that happened, we automatically started consuming 3 times the cheese that we ate previous to that. And so all of a sudden having way more cheese that our bodies are used to. So again, consuming way more dairy than our bodies are used to. So it just became a big problem. And the recommendation of eating cheese did not come from science. It did not come from any research that was done. It nearly came from the need to get rid of all the excess dairy that we had in this country. And that's where cheese recommendations and cheese advertising, cheese marketing all started from. So again, we have to take the marketing, we have to take all of this stuff with a grain of salt. Many of you may remember the marketing campaign that Cheerios did, right? Heart healthy, reduces cholesterol. That research was done, and they compared people eating Cheerios to people eating McDonald's or eating bacon, eggs, and sausage for breakfast. Now, someone that's eating bacon, sausage, and eggs every day for breakfast versus eating Cheerios for breakfast, their cholesterols will come down. But if you take someone that's eating vegetables or stir fry or eating whole grain, like an oatmeal or something like that, is it going to actually be better than Cheerios? Probably not. But those studies haven't been done by the food industry. And so you have to be very careful of all of the research that's actually being done. Now, this, right, so most of us buy bread at home. Have you ever looked at the ingredients of your bread? If you make bread at home, what does it need? It needs flour, whole wheat flour, salt, water, and yeast. 4 ingredients. Most bread these days have over 10 ingredients in them. It's not needed. So what is all that other stuff? All that other stuff is there to increase shelf life and to make you want to buy that brand of bread again, because there's flavor enhancers, there's synthetic things in that bread to make you want to keep buying that bread, to make it last longer so it doesn't go bad. And the reason for this is that 40% of our food that is produced in the United States goes to waste. This is not a number from a blog, a book, anything. This is on the USDA website. Right now, you can go look it up on the USDA website. 40% of our food goes to waste. So we are making and creating food to become efficient and to create more quantity of it, but our quality has gone down significantly. So the amount of nutrition that is found in the banana today than it was 50 years ago, the nutrition is way, way less. The amount of minerals found in veggies today is less than what it used to be because these vegetables are all mass produced. They're not farmed in a way where you're rotating crops. They're most veggies that are organic are using weed killers that don't allow any other seeds to grow on it. For example, Monsanto started selling seeds or weed killer. Because that weed killer killed everything, they genetically modified a seed that was resistant to Monsanto's chemical. Because of that, nothing else can grow on that land. And so you have to keep planting the same seed over and over and over again. And if you ask any farmer what that does, it depletes the soil of nutrients. And when your soil no longer has the nutrients, your veggies don't get those nutrients. So organic farming is starting to change that, but you really have to find true organic farmers, because today many people want the label of organic, and yet they're not truly farming organic. They're really not raising their animals organically. They're not planting. They're not using soil that's organic. It just is becoming a mess. So we need to find good places to buy our produce. Farmers markets are a great place to start. Local what are they called? CSAs or CSAs are great, where communities are coming together to farm, and then they're selling those veggies. But farmers markets, you get to usually interact directly with the farmers. You can ask them, hey, do you use pesticides? How do you farm? Where is your farm? And all these questions make people want to farm better. And usually their product, their veggies, are picked the day before or 2 days before and then sold at a farmer's market. So they have the most amount of nutrients that you're going to get compared to a grocery store, because they're not shipped in from other parts of the country or other parts of the world. There's so many stories. For example, we think, oh, McCormick's vanilla extract is good, it's cheap. But that stuff is completely synthetic. It uses a flavor enhancer that tastes like vanilla, but it's not really vanilla extract. The other thing our industry does, if you take Cinnabon, for example, another story. So the lady that came up with Cinnabon, I'm just going to quickly say hello to some of the people that have joined. Jenny, Hina, Heather, hello, welcome. If you have any questions, please, in the comment section, write any questions. Would love to hear them. And there's a comment from I. Yes, I did mean oatmeal is going to definitely be better for you than Cheerios, because it's not a processed food that you want to have. So going back to the story of Cinnabon, a lady in the Midwest had this awesome ready for Cinnabon. She would always make it, or for cinnamon rolls, she would always sell it make it for holidays for her family members. One day, a guest came over who was in the food industry, loved her cinnamon rolls, said, hey, I would love to buy this recipe from you, and we want to take your cinnamon rolls into making a chain out of it. Anyway, we all know Cinnabon. What they did was they took her original recipe and they said, this is great, but we got to have people buy this. So what they did was, when they created the stores, pretty much every Cinnabon, as you see, is in a mall or in a space where people can smell. You walk into a mall and, oh my gosh, you can smell that aroma of cinnamon and sugar and everything, and it makes you want that the cinnamon roll. What they did was they built special ovens that, as they're cooking that, it blasted out the aromas into the open space so that everyone around can smell that. They added flavor, and so much of when we crave something comes from our nose, from the olfactory receptors in our nose, and it says, oh my gosh, I smell something, I want that. And so, right, again, scientists and researchers and psychologists know this, and they started to play on that, and they added more butter to that roll, because that's the more fat. They added a little salt and sugar to that, and so cinnamon rolls became very, very addictive, and you wanted it as soon as you walk into a mall, before you even knew that. Going to a mall not knowing that, hey, I'm not going to order Cinnabon today, I'm going for something else. You walk in, you're like, oh my gosh, I want that, because we are so quick to want something and need something. Our brains are like, gimme, 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 gimme. And so that's how they started to market Cinnabon. And that's how the country got hooked to it. Even though most people, you ask, 99% of people know that Cinnabon's bad for you, there's lines to want it more because it's hard to resist the combination of salt, sugar, and fat. It's almost as strong as cocaine. Is when you combine these three, it addicts our minds to wanting those types of foods. And the food industry knows this. And so they do this in all processed food. So when you're eating fast food, when you're having frozen meals, when you're having canned box foods, TV dinners, all this stuff, that's what they're doing. They're taking these three ingredients and they're stacking it together because you're going to keep coming back for more. You're going to keep coming back for more. Monica, welcome. Thank you for joining. You're going to keep wanting more. And so our bodies keep craving this. And that's where we want to kind of understand that this food industry, what are they doing to us and where are they coming from in order to get us to keep eating. So what I would love to ask is, and what I want people to comment on is, where do you get your food? Where can we get healthier veggies that are nutrient rich? We want that. So, when you're at your local stores, ask the manager at Sprouts, hey, can you guys get more local produce? When you're at the farmer's market, ask them questions. Hey, can you bring in veggies that don't have pesticides? Can you bring in things that don't have the bad stuff in it? Do you rotate your crop? How do you farm? And asking these questions, when enough of us start asking these questions, the industry slowly starts to change. Now, when most people come in and ask for diets and food recommendations, they talk about nutrition. They say, oh, well, I'm on a low carb diet. I'm on I added this much protein to my diet. I added this much carb to my diet. And it's all based on nutrition versus based on food. And again, that comes from the government changed the way they talk about food in terms of, and with the recommendation of food industry to talk about nutrition versus talking about whole foods. And so because of that, that's why we have nutrition label, and it focuses on carb, protein, sodium. It focuses on vitamins, and that's the focus of that. So when you're actually talking about the thousands of items that are in a vegetable, how do you judge the nutrition of what you're actually getting by eating a carrot, by eating broccoli, by eating cabbage and celery and kale and spinach? How do you judge that based on a small nutrition label that says this is how much carb it has, this is how much protein it has, this is how much vitamin C, vitamin A, and iron it has? How do you judge that food based on these 4, 5, or 6, 10 factors? You can't, because there's so many things that we don't know about what's in food, and two, of how those different things interact with each other. And what our industry is doing is it's extracting one thing from here and extracting one thing from here and saying, hey, let's put it in this, and now let's make that a nutritious drink. Let's make that into a nutritious food. Let's call it a health food. But we're losing so much nutrients by getting rid of that. And so what we really, really need to do is actually go back to the roots and eat whole foods, eat the entire vegetable, not juice it, not buy it in other forms, not buy it in pill form, not buy it in vitamin form, but actually eat the entire vegetable. We can cook it, we can add spices and add other things to it, absolutely. But we want to eat this food in its most natural form, and try and buy it from places like farmers markets where this stuff is as fresh as possible. I know it adds a lot of work to go to a farmers market once a week, but these are the ways that we can slowly change the industry. Go to grocery stores and ask the produce manager, hey, do you think you can order some local produce for us? Can you have a section here that says local produce? And slowly, there are grocery stores that are doing this, because when enough people ask, they're going to say, hey, there's a need for this. And they're going to slowly bring this up. But when we coach people to say, let's change this from your diet, let's get rid of the processed food, let's get rid of what the food industry wants you to eat, let's get rid of that and start eating lots and lots of veggies, fresh veggies, the amount of energy that people have, the amount of clarity that people gain, the amount of disease that slowly starts to go away is incredible. It's incredible, right? When we're eating 3 times the amount of cheese that we used to from 50 years ago, it tells us, and when we decrease that cheese, all of a sudden people feel better because we're probably just eating way more than we need to because the industry is making so much of the food that it's saying, hey, here, buy more, buy more, eat more. And we see advertisements that, right, and they're saying, oh, well, protein is good for you, so eat more cheese because it's high in protein. Eat more cheese because it's high in protein. But that's it. How else does it affect our body? We don't know. And we don't look into that. We just look into the one factor of protein. And when we look at the overall effects of the food on our body, we start to see that there's way more effects to it. So for example, if you eat very healthy and you eat clean, well, why aren't you able to lose weight? Why is your disease not being reversed? Why is your diabetes? Why are you still diabetic? Why do you still have high blood pressure? I challenge anyone to go to 7 days of eating very, very clean, meaning just tons and tons of veggies that are as local as possible, and see how you feel. Increase your water intake tremendously. Cut your dairy intake by 1/3 to by 75%. Cut your dairy intake by 75%. That means cheese, yogurt, milk, and everything that comes with it. And see how you feel. Cut your meat intake by 90%. Fine, have 10% meat if you'd like. But see how you feel when you're not going by the food industry's recommendations. And they don't give recommendations, but what they do is they say, hey, let me market this to you. This is on sale. This is cheap. Eat this, eat this, eat this. And they want you to have all of that. And they'll sell you sizes that are bigger and bigger. And so you eat more and more. And the more you eat, the family sizes of Cheerios, the family size of popcorn, the family size of pasta, it's all bigger and it's cheaper. So we buy more. As we buy more, we eat it more. And so our body is addicted to it more. So then we go buy it again, right? Things like when you eat pasta, Prego has almost, I think, 2 times the recommended sugar amount in pasta sauce. Again, pasta sauce does not need sugar in it. Why does it have sugar in there? Because those tomatoes are not picked when they should be picked. They're picked way before that, so they're sour, so they add sugar into it to make it taste better. Campbell's soup, if you drink that stuff without sugar in it, it tastes metallic, is how crappy it tastes. So they have to add tons of salt, tons of sugar to it. And sorry, some of them don't have sugar. They add a lot of salt to it in order to get rid of that metallic taste, because salt is a flavor enhancer. And just like that, they take things like high fructose corn syrup, which the US is still one of the only countries, one of the few, that allows high fructose corn syrup in their food. In Mexico, they don't allow it. In India, they don't allow it. In so many countries, they don't allow high fructose corn syrup because it's not good for you. And we still allow this because our food industry has a tremendous amount of power on our food, and it is making us sick. It is making us feel horrible. And because of that, then we need coffee because we don't feel good. We don't have the energy. So then we need caffeine, and we drink tons and tons of coffee, and we need tea, and we need to then pay for workout classes, and then we need to pay for weight loss programs, and we need to do all this stuff. Where if we say, hey, I'm going to stick to really, really good food and try not to be influenced by this industry and eat things that are natural and real, then I will feel better. I challenge you to try it for 1 week. I guarantee you will feel better. I would love to hear from people, their questions. Antonio, absolutely. Sugar is a silent killer, absolutely. But I would love to hear more people's comments or questions. Throughout this week, try doing this, see how you feel, and post your pictures of what you're eating, and let's check it out. If you want to hashtag those pictures to Silicon Valley Doc, I can see them, and let's share with each other healthy recipes. Let's share with each other, and we'll post some as well on our accounts to share ideas and pictures of what we're eating, and give people ideas of how simple it is sometimes to eat fresh veggies and to kind of get rid of all that the food industry has to offer to us. Again, thank you for joining us today I'll be open to some questions, comments, and would love to hear from you guys. Antonio, I haven't seen that documentary. Would love to watch it. I'll check it out. Where can you, is it on Netflix, Hulu? Where is that documentary at? All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us for Facebook Live today. We'll be having another one on Friday, and I hope you all can join us. Stay posted. Thanks again. Have a great day.